Richie. Richie from Boston's here. Now that's a surprise. He's muted.
Hi, Richie.
Welcome aboard, Richie. How are you doing?
Not too bad. My audio all right?
Your audio is great, man.
Sweet.
I sent him a message. I said, join or don't.
I was just laying under my truck out in the driveway trying to get it squared away so I can head west Monday. And I walked in and there was the email, so it was good timing.
Nice.
Awesome. Well, we have Tonette on here and we are Dust, and now we have Richie. So the discussion's kind of, we're kind of a Mandela channel, but the discussion is focusing on people talking about the Bible that don't read the Bible. And then what else were we talking about? What were we talking about, Tonette? Now I've lost my train of thought. I'm off the train. I fell off.
I think we're all over the board.
So what do you bring to the table, Rich?
Well, give me something to work with here. What are we talking about? Things like the Mandela effect and what made you believe it was real?
Sure.
Well, there could be that if you want to talk about that. The wolf and the wolf dwelling with the lamb was the subject when you popped in. But whatever you want.
I've heard a lot of people that are really, really well versed, and that particular Mandela effect doesn't do much for me. But I'll tell you what, I don't know how long you guys have been following my channel, but years ago when the Mandela effect surfaced, I looked at it and then instantly started putting out videos going, listen, this is stupid. This is a complete psyop. This is to get everybody looking in the other direction. And then later I had to eat crow on that because I bought a Bible from the late 1800s and started looking at some of these quote unquote Mandela effects. And I was like, oh my, because I'm 51 years old. I completely remember Tiananmen Square as it was presented to us live on the news, and the tank drove over the guy.
Yes.
In our new reality, the guy jumps on top of the tank. Do you know what I'm saying? It wouldn't have been a thing if the guy didn't get run over. It would have just been a protest, and China probably wouldn't have said anything about it.
Yeah.
And yet, you know what I'm saying? And then I started looking at things like JFK's car. It's a 6-seater, yet they have a 4-seater at the JFK Museum with an exact replica. It's a 4-seater. But
why would they do that?
You know what I'm saying?
Right.
I had to eat crow on that one, but it is what it is. Nobody, I don't claim to be an expert in anything whatsoever at all. So when you're wrong, you got to say it. And I did. So there's that.
Yeah.
Of course. And I would do the same thing. I mean, but I don't know if you saw the Home Depot effect video I put up yesterday, but and I don't know where you sit on that, what you remember, but most people remember Home Depot. And I had a friend that, and this is something I mentioned earlier before you came on, it's encouraged for pilots to talk about UFOs now. That's something I want to talk about on your channel when I get on there. We're encouraged to talk about that now. Isn't that odd? But things like the Mandela effect, flat earth, all those other taboo things, no, don't talk about those. So a pilot sent me a commercial about this guy talking about going to Home Depot, and he said, check this out. What's missing from this? And there's no "the" on the sign, right? But their history says they've always been the Home Depot. They've never been Home Depot.
Well, again, I don't know how long you've watched my channel, but there's probably, I'm going to guess, there's probably about 130 videos I made still up right now where I'm driving to or in the Home Depot parking lot. You know what I'm saying?
Awesome.
The thing is things like that, they don't get, like, people, logos changing, stuff like that. That's a tough one. You did a good job proving it yesterday. I mean, you showed it everywhere. But stuff like I said, the guy got run over by a tank, which is why Tiananmen Square was actually a thing. It wouldn't be it wouldn't be in the public imagination still if a guy stood down a tank.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? I remember them saying this is graphic and horrible, and it was an atrocity. And I mean, the guy got turned into a thin paste, and now he just jumps on top of the tank and all is well. You know what I'm saying? And then
I remember all the red. Yeah, like the screen went red. It was bad.
Yep, it was bad. And then when CERN put out that video, where they were happy and they were showing the guy holding the Mandela sign, and then everything going, like them basically saying this quantum pollution, we're doing this by accident, etc. Or they want you to believe that. That's when I really started grabbing onto it. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Yeah, like I said, there's one for everybody, you know, because I truly think, and I have a poll in the community side on my channel there. Your choices for the Mandela effect are: is it Bible prophecy? Is it a multiverse? Is it a computer simulation? It's unknown. I don't know what it is, or it's a psyop. So that's the vote. I have 128 votes so far. So I'm gathering information just to see where everybody thinks we are. 52% right now think it's Bible prophecy. That's where I am with it. But you know, I don't want to live in an echo chamber. So, you know, if other people leave other things, but like I said, why would logos have to change? You know why? Who freaking reads the Bible? Who reads the Bible?
Right.
But we look at logos. We see those every day, you know?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
But Tonette, you didn't get shut down, did you?
No, I'm here.
Okay. I don't want to be rude.
No, no, it's fine.
You're so rude, dude.
I
Well,
said join or don't.
You said something earlier, and I'm not trying to monopolize this at all whatsoever.
No.
No, go ahead.
But you said something earlier about, you know, they're encouraging pilots all of a sudden. When I saw, I mean, I've made a few videos on this, and I've got unbelievable amounts of mainstream news, Pentagon news briefings, etc. I mean, they flipped the switch. Now, the reason they'll let you talk about that is because it's going to serve their agenda. No problem. They're going to trick everyone into believing that grays aren't just formless demons that have been here for time immemorial. They're going to tell us they're really, really evolved humans that no longer need their noses or, you know, reproductive organs, etc. But they can't talk about the flat earth because that'll completely ruin everything. If they figure out that we're living on a plane inside the waters, surrounded by the waters, exactly as the Bible says, it kind of ruins everything. You know what I'm saying? That's my point of view on it.
Yeah, and I thought it was always weird with the flat earth. I'm like, if it's so ridiculous, why aren't they just making fun of it? Why are they suppressing it? You know?
Well, I mean, you're in the same ballpark as far as being on this earth as long as I have. Growing up, if something was laughable and ludicrous and it didn't make any sense, they ignored it because every time. How about this? It's like somebody making a video about you saying that you're, you know, I'll take myself for an example. You're a transgender woman, demon, CIA agent, shill working for the Rockefellers, et cetera, and you're secretly Jewish. I deal with that all the time.
Wow.
But, you know, people, I get emails like, Richie, these people they've been talking about you. Why don't you say anything? Because if I say anything about this, I'm literally giving them free publicity. I'm actually helping their cause because there's no such thing as bad publicity. These guys in the mainstream bringing up the ludicrousness of, if that's even a word, of the earth being flat. If it wasn't a thing, they wouldn't talk about it. But it seems like NASA and the mainstream are more worried about what the shape of the earth is than we are. Do you know what I'm saying? And
yeah, absolutely.
That was one of the biggest things that got me to finally come out and say it, because when I started my channel, I was looking at the sky and I was watching the International Space Station and I was trying to get video of other planets and stuff. That was a tough one because that was 40 years. I've been looking at the sky through some sort of optics telescope or whatever since I was 9. And it finally dawned on me why all of a sudden these things seem to be like the stars started to change. It looked like they were underwater. And then when you start looking into it, there's a reason for that. That was a tough pill to swallow, man. You know what I lost I'm talking 50,000 subscribers because of that. I can't believe it. And again, I was telling people come on, man. It's a psyop. You know, another time I had to eat crow. So
it's an interesting world, isn't it?
It is. And like you were saying, if the mainstream, if it wasn't legit, they would just ignore it. You know, there's plenty of things to talk about, but they don't. And that in itself, to me, is telling. But I digress.
Well, you know, a litmus test for all this stuff is prove it with the negative. So the religion that you're allowed to make fun of is Christianity. The belief in Jesus, you're allowed to make fun of Jesus. You're allowed to use him as a cuss word. It's fine. But don't bring up those other religions, boy. Leave those alone. Leave them alone. And I mean, right there, there's some proof right there. And if Jesus wasn't such a threat, why is there such a negative propaganda campaign against Jesus? I mean, it's everywhere. You can't get away from it.
Yeah.
Now what do you think, Tonette? Where are you?
Oh,
Where are you with all this?
I think you are absolutely right. It's the last politically correct prejudice. Yeah. Um, Being a Christian or being a cigarette smoker. Those are the two things you can make fun of. You
Yeah.
know,
I
everything
don't
else
I don't
is off
smoke, so I'm
limits.
okay with that. But I don't make fun of cigarette smokers though.
People pick on gingers too, so
Okay, well, that's understandable.
I would
oh,
not
it
compare that.
is. Come on.
Don't compare that to making fun of Jesus. That's way off.
No, it's not. It's not. You're right. You're right, Awaken.
So I mean, that's you prove these things with you can prove them with the negatives. That's step one, and then, like I said in the beginning of the show, the Bible is the most debated book that no one reads,
Yeah.
right? Because you're like, oh, I don't believe in the Bible. I don't like what it says. And then, okay, well, tell me which book stands out for you.
Yeah.
Yeah, nothing. It's
Yeah.
static. You get static because they don't know what they don't know what they don't like because they've just bought into the propaganda of not liking it. And that's. Oh, go ahead, Rich.
No, I didn't mean to step on you, man.
No, go ahead.
The live stream I asked you on the other night that you couldn't make. I don't know if you got a chance to listen to it, but I was referring to we were talking about the Bible and how the more I started cracking the Bible, the more I started wanting to find proof. Just not that faith wasn't enough, but the amazing amount of negativity you get. Like, dude, the Bible's simply a rewritten, Freemason demonic book, et cetera, et cetera. I wanted to see if there was any way to prove it. And like I was telling David, Jesus Freak, and Photo Helix the other day, the first thing I ran into was giants. It's in the very, very, very beginning of the Bible where they talk about the Nephilim, etc.
Yeah.
And it turns out the earth
Absolutely.
is literally covered with evidence of giants walking this earth. And I was talking about Sir Flinders Petrie. I have a PDF right here, and End Times Productions did a good video this morning on the skull that had the horns on it. The amount of people tilling their soil just to plant things in the United States and finding enormous skulls, bones, burial mounds, etc., is staggering. The fact that there's a barbed wire fence in the Middle East with soldiers around it, and there's a stone in the middle that's been cracked by a staff that brought water forth. The fact that these guys have Sodom and Gomorrah, they found it. They found it. And the fire coming from the sky, the evidence is all over the ground.
Oh, man. I have things to tell you if you don't know.
Man. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's amazing that people just discount this because they haven't looked into it, and it's easy to find. It's getting more difficult because they're scrubbing the internet, but it's still out there. I have an enormous PDF that I'm sending you email right now.
Awesome.
From that guy, Flinders Petrie, the guy that invented the Petri dish. He was doing an expedition in Egypt, and he came across what he called a new race of people. He found an entire cemetery filled with people that were 8 to 12 to 15 feet tall, hundreds of them.
Nice.
You know what I'm saying?
Totally believe it. Absolutely.
So that right there proves many, many facets of the Bible as much as I'm able to. I'm no expert by any stretch.
Yeah.
Oh, there's a few things. They know where Noah's Ark is. They know where that is, right? I mean, that's in Turkey. Now they have found, and I think it was briefly mentioned on the news, and then all of a sudden it went away. They found the army under the Red Sea. Do you guys know that? Does anyone know that? That they found the chariots and swords, and it looks literally an army got buried under
wheels, etc.
Oh, yeah. Oh, wait, there's more. That area is a prohibited area because I could actually go up there with my helicopter, and if I did, they would shoot me down. That's what a prohibited area is. You can't fly in there. You can't fly over it. Not allowed to look at it.
So
why is that?
See it
why are you not allowed to look at it?
Oh, wow.
Isn't that a little weird? Also, there's a rock over here. There's a rock over here that water's coming from it. Do you guys know that story?
That's what Richie was just talking about. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. That's also
Moses hit his staff and it split and water came forth, correct?
Yes.
Water started coming from it, I think, 3 or 4 years ago. And ever since then, it's illegal to go there. You cannot go there.
I believe, I could be wrong, but I believe Dr. Robert Schock from right here in Massachusetts, I've emailed and spoke to him a couple of times. He's the guy that proved that the Sphinx was eroded by a great flood. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
I'm almost positive he's the one that checked out that stone before they made it prohibited. And it was obvious that not only was water coming from it, water came from it explosively, exactly like somebody hit it with a staff. And now
Wow.
suddenly it's a no-fly zone, NFZ.
Can't go there. Not
Can't go
allowed to see it. So if this stuff's all fake, why can't you look at it? Man, this is all very fascinating. The giants, now those things are being found left and right. That's more stories that I know of that some of them I can't talk about. You know what I mean? Like there's giants being found everywhere.
Alive? Awaken?
No, not well, maybe. I don't know about the alive ones, but I know they're finding bones everywhere, man.
There's
Go ahead, Rick.
several stories that are next to impossible to verify from soldiers in Afghanistan, in Iraq that ran into enormous people with red hair and shields and swords. There's tons of them. L.A. Marzulli, I've met L.A. I've sat down and had dinner with him. He's like a crazy uncle type thing with really corny jokes and such. But LA's been on the trail of the Nephilim forever. And some of the stuff he says they take with a grain of salt because he still believes Trump's going to save people, which I don't understand. But at any rate, he's done a lot of good work on this stuff. And he had a soldier on that couldn't give out his name. And I understand that. I get it. That was explaining the battle that these guys had. These were several special forces dudes with serious weaponry that stood toe to toe with a giant in Afghanistan. If you don't know that story, you should look it up. You know what I'm saying? Like these are soldiers. They have no reason to lie. It's just like the guys that were being held, the Middle Eastern guys, the Taliban, the bad guys, quote unquote, that were being held in that bridge on the Euphrates that were like, you can't keep us down here. This is where the fallen angels are. And apparently the soldiers were seeing otherworldly things happening, et cetera, and most of it gets covered up. But that was answering Tonette when she said, giant still alive. People still are running into them here and there. It's just really hard to get that story out because the Smithsonian and the elites own the media.
Cover it, yeah. Hide it.
It's fascinating. So what do you think, Tonette? What do you think about giants?
You know, David killed a giant.
Yeah, true.
Yeah, David killed a giant. I have seen different things on them finding. Excuse me, finding the bones. I've actually seen a skull that was about as tall as a man standing next to a skull. It's my understanding the giants come in different varieties.
Yeah, that's how
they're different sizes, just like we are. You have tall ones, short ones, all kinds of.
Well, I mean, I'm talking feet difference. I mean,
they're big. These are noticeably big people.
Right. I mean, I've seen people who were 6.5, 7 feet tall.
No, we're talking.
But
I'm talking
yeah,
the smallest from the stories I know were 11 to 12 feet. That's the small ones. Like those are childs, like children.
Right. Like I believe that they exist. I'm just now, after all this time, just now finding out about mud floods and whatnot, and that's
I don't
been
know much
kind of
about
my.
that subject. I haven't really looked
I didn't either. I happened to come across a video and it's like, oh my goodness. That's been my next. That's what I've been kind of when I have a chance and kind of studying into the last couple weeks. And it makes sense again with the water erosion. Living in Colorado, there's great big huge mountains. They're claiming that rivers cut these what's the word I'm looking, canyons.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
It's like the only way that the water is going to rush and do that much erosion is if they were underwater. You're not going to have this even if we consider it a big river. This small little stream of water is not going to make it that big, that wide. For me, that's pretty obvious. They had to have been underwater at some point for that much erosion to be there. Yeah. To me, it's a no-brainer. But then, of course, I know what I was taught in school. Oh yeah, over the course of thousands and thousands and thousands of years, it's like it just never quite made sense to me.
No.
As I've always been one to question authority, or if I respect the authority, I'll sit down and I'll listen.
Yeah.
But I've always been more of a investigative type of person. It's like, well, that doesn't seem right. What other reasons could there be?
Yeah.
But yeah, I think definitely giants are a thing. Um, I had not heard about the Sphinx being um,
Under,
the but yeah, I
Yeah.
mean it's in the middle of the desert. You know, there
Yeah.
had to have had water there for any kind of erosion, and it's in the middle of the desert.
yeah.
Yeah, I
Well,
think
not so much
Richie,
anymore.
I think Richie has something to add to this. I think I'm kind of leaning towards what he's saying with it. Are you with us, Rich?
I am. I
I'm
I covered,
kind
I
of leaning
covered
towards that. But do you want to mention it?
the message I just sent you.
Yeah.
Well, to me, I mean, I looked at the mud flood a few times, and you know, you have to remember, I mean, seriously, you have to remember the videos that I just put up the last couple of days about the amount, I mean, the literal armies of disinformation trolls, incredibly well presented videos that just keep popping all day, that take a couple of days, a team of people to put up. In my opinion, the mud flood is simply misdirection away from the Great Flood. The Great Flood and water blowing out of the earth to flood the earth as much as it did from the heavens and from the earth explains the Grand Canyon, all this stuff.
Yeah.
Colorado River, like
That's
I've been
true.
there. I've been there. I've looked at this stuff firsthand. It all makes sense. The mud flood to me. Sorry for all the people that are following it, but it's just another in a long line of misdirection that shows
No,
up.
I think I agree with that. I kind of agree.
You know
with
what I'm saying?
Mhm.
I'm very cautious about
Tonette, look up Dr. Robert Schock. You know, he's
Dr.
not
Robert, what?
Dr. Robert Schock, Schocke. He's a
Okay.
professor in Boston, and he went out there and he said these things were all underwater, and the Egyptian historians hated him, and he just proved it. He's like, do you see this? This is not from sand; it's water erosion. If you took all the water out of the ocean, you'd have a huge desert.
Mhm.
Do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So there's that. And Awaken, I just sent you two really good links, and one of them is the Giant of Kandahar, Afghanistan, on L.A. Marzulli's YouTube channel. It's from 2016.
That'd be awesome to look at. I've been to Kandahar. I've actually flown around there too, so it'd be very interesting if I could validate something.
Dude, you gotta, yeah, this is mint. This is perfect. Perfect.
Yeah, 'cause, like if it's a fake thing, I could say, you know what, this area doesn't exist. So I can look at it and just kind of validate it. And as far as I did personally, guys, I did not see any giants in Afghanistan or anything like that. I saw a bunch of sand and a bunch of people really didn't want me to be there. I saw that.
Yeah.
Right. Well,
but
most of the troops that were over there didn't see anything, but a lot of guys that were crawling around here and there. I mean, this is a big, big, big earth we live on. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
I've seen a lot of it, but I haven't
Totally
seen any.
possible.
You know what I mean? So listen to that. Take it with a grain of salt. But I've probably literally had, I'm going to say 1,000 soldiers over the last 4 years email me and say, dude, the shit that we saw over there was insane. Apologize for swearing, but I'm the worst Christian ever at any rate.
We don't get offended easily, so don't worry about that. But what I'm saying is I can add value with, I can validate that the area is real as far as what I see if you're sending me pictures. So that can add some value, right? Because I was actually there. So it's one of those things. If you said, hey, here's a video of this city and there's giants in it, and I'm from the city, and I say that city's not really, that doesn't look like where I was, you know, that kind of thing. But I may be able to add some value in backing up that it's an actual picture of that spot.
Yeah.
And that's the only help I can give. It's interesting.
One thing that
I've heard rumors. Go ahead, Dust.
Okay. One thing that's really funny to me about this whole, it kind of goes back to evolution with the flood and everything like that, because obviously the flood is in refute to evolution. But the funny thing about evolution in the Grand Canyon and such as that is that I've been there. I've gone and looked at it. It's interesting. They call those there's more of them at Bryce Canyon. They call them monuments. And they look like weathered statues, basically, where you can't see features at all, but they look like statues just standing there. But at any rate, it's interesting the story that we're told, the fable. It more and more just is just a fable that people are just believing as truth from the very beginning. That literally, a strata is just a thin layer of um, of land. The lines, the layers. It could be anywhere from half an inch to an a couple inches or a foot or whatever like that. And they say that took 100 years for those stratas to all build up. Not 100, like billions of years for those stratas to build up. And then it took another billions of years.
Billions
It's
and
weird.
billions.
I know it's weird because they think their story is that this erosion took place on so we're supposedly still building strata all the time. We're creating strata all the time, apparently, and eroding it all the time. Yet the Grand Canyon is layers and layers and thousands of layers of strata, and a massive amount of erosion, like billions of years of erosion.
That's
How
a
does that
quite
math work? How are they doing that? I mean, talk about people being smart and wise. How are they doing the math on that one?
well.
It doesn't.
NASA's math falls apart on itself constantly because if you do the sun is supposed to be a fusion reaction that is shrinking over time because it's burning its fuel, right? And then if
Yeah.
you take that a separate story, how old they say the Earth is, and you reverse model the sun is literally lapping on the Earth.
Yeah,
So
exactly.
the math doesn't work. It's not as
Right.
old as they say it is. It just doesn't
Exactly.
work.
None of the math works at all. According to them. Now, okay, this is talking about a fictitious event, I understand, but
What do you
according,
mean fictitious
well,
event?
I was going to bring up the amount of dust that there should have been on the moon, and which, obviously you
Yeah, I
can't.
would say most all of us believe we didn't go to the moon.
Right. So, but they didn't even pull it off very well, because for their billions of years of evolution to have worked out, there should have been feet of dust that these people were.
Well, let me stop you. Let me stop you there. You're on the moon, right? How big is the moon? You guys know? Just guess. How big is it? It's like 2,000 miles wide. How big is the Earth? How many miles wide is the Earth? So if you're on the moon and you're looking up at a stationary object, the sky should have been almost all blue. You know what I'm saying? You know what I'm saying? I'm telling the Richie from Boston. He's got me saying it now. That's contagious.
Should have
So I
been.
mean, you're looking up. It should be mostly blue. The Earth should be taking up the entire sky almost if you're on the moon.
Right. There shouldn't have
Get it?
been.
I mean, come on, guys. Man, it's like a cartoon. It's so ridiculous.
Yeah.
But
Have you ever looked at NASA's EPIC telescope or their EPIC website where they show a real-time simulation? Because everything's a real-time simulation when you're lying to that scale.
yeah.
They literally kill themselves with their image. This is what the Earth looks like from the moon. And then they use their EPIC telescope, which is allegedly, I don't know, 1 million miles away from Earth, because that's doable. We got mad.
Yeah, right.
And they show the moon traveling around the Earth. And when you look at it, it's like, so if I was on the moon looking at the Earth, all I would see is the Earth, because it's massive comparatively.
Yeah.
And they're telling us it's to scale. I did a video on that in like 2015, and NASA did not like that whatsoever at all.
I bet they didn't.
I believe that they think, hey, we're hitting these people with GMOs, we're hitting them with fluoride vaccines, we're sprinkling heavy metal into the atmosphere that they're breathing, whether they want to believe it or not. They're dumb. And then we use television to make them even dumber. Like they think that sports are important. They think movie stars are like, that guy was in a movie, so his political opinions are right on target. They believe that they can just keep that. That's why they're slow rolling going back to the moon. They're just waiting for all of us to die. All of us that saw the landing on the radio. You know what dude, they landed on the moon. I heard it on the radio. Come on.
Wow.
They're claiming that China's there right now.
Oh yeah, and then nobody's got.
But they can't get through the Van Allen belt.
Yeah, China doesn't have any cameras. They don't know how to. They don't know anything about cameras except
Oh,
everything
yeah,
on their own says Hensho in China right on it. You know, they're on the
and they
dark
wouldn't,
phone. Yeah,
and China wouldn't have like 400 cell phone towers all over the moon if they were there,
at
right?
all, at all, or a giant Tesla death ray being pointed at Donald Trump's hair.
Yeah. Yeah. But well, and then you have the spacecraft that's outside the solar system beaming back signals with a 9-volt battery that's almost 40 years old. and somehow they're picking that up out of all the background radiation. They're picking up this little battery that somehow still has power, by the way, because it's a 40 years old battery.
Bunny keeps going and going and going.
I want to know what instrument's picking up a 9-volt battery from billions of miles away. That's really what I want to figure out.
Or the telephone call from Nixon.
Well,
you
yeah,
know?
but they're claiming that they're talking to this 9-volt battery that's past the planet of Pluto. You can't see my air quotes because I don't have a camera on. But I mean, who knows what the heck is even? There's nothing out there. Come on, guys.
Yeah.
I mean, the thing that they're showing, they probably go to a museum and just show you the Voyager that they have there, and then they put a black background on it, and they're like, oh, here it is. This is what it looks like. It's insane. I've been to the Houston Space Center and I saw them swimming around the space station in the pool, and I never thought when I looked at that I might have been actually watching them in space. Do you know what I mean? When I did that, I was like, now I'm thinking, you know what? I was probably watching the footage from space, because I saw the cameramen too. Because when you go on the tour, there's guys in dive suits with cameras underwater filming them and everything. And they say, well, here's the astronauts training, and it's realistic training. As you can see, they're wearing exactly what they wear in space. And I never put it together. Like, maybe I was really watching the space footage. You get what I'm saying?
Cool stuff. Yeah. Wow.
You just pay for tickets and they'll let you go watch it.
Well, one of the things that always got me with the pictures from the moon was they say that the stars weren't visible for whatever reason. It's like, if the stars are distorted because of our atmosphere, then once we're on the moon, shouldn't they be
very good point.
So prevalent? I mean, you get out of town and on the top of a mountain, you can see a whole lot more stars.
Yeah.
Without the light pollution. Well, the lack of light pollution you should have been able to see just so many stars, but yet the background is black. That never made sense to me, even when I was a school kid. It's like, wait a second, where are the stars?
That's a good point, Tonette. But if they recently decided to change that, and now the moon is in our atmosphere, because too many people like yourself
I heard that.
have been questioning that.
That's a true story.
You'd think that when they went to the moon, they would have said, hey, it's still in Earth's atmosphere. But 50 years later, after the advent of YouTube, they decided to change it up. So they are listening at all.
Yeah. You guys were talking about the sun just a little bit ago. My 7-year-old grandson came to me about a month ago, and he said, Grandma, did you know that the sun is white now? Out of the Mount of Babes.
Yeah.
Out of the Mount of Babes. And I'm like, honey, yes, I know it's white now, but I remember when it was yellow. Do you remember? He goes, I think so.
Before they were spraying the crap out of the sky, right?
And he's like, yeah, I think so. It's like, well, just know that it used to be yellow. I mean, I didn't want it. He's 7 years old. He can only absorb so much. But I felt like I had to validate. Yes, it is white now, but yes, it used to be yellow. Nice.
Yeah, I've actually seen a couple times back in Texas, I've seen the yellow sun every now and then. The sky will get, like you won't see the spray for several days. It's not time to do it or whatever's going on with that, because they'll admit they're doing it anyway. But you won't see it for a while, and the sky will actually start to get blue and the sun starts turning yellow again. So I don't think that's like a Mandela effect type thing. I think there's stuff in the air keeping it from doing what it would normally do. It's being blocked out.
Could be.
In my opinion. That's my opinion.
I agree, because I've seen the sunset out west where it's absolutely enormous. And sometimes if they don't put up the fake horizon that the sun slips into, like a quarter into an envelope, you can still
Yeah.
see it's orange or
Yeah.
yellow. You know what I'm saying? You can see it
Yeah, I've
once
seen
in a
that.
great while, but in
Thank you for
Boston, you never.
corroborating that, because I actually don't. The sun changing is not as big of a thing for me, because I do, it does, especially when it's setting. It's definitely most often I have seen it white, but it's a lot of times it is yellow still, as it's setting. But
Yeah,
I
I
will.
always see it yellow when it's setting. I've never, but when it's up in the sky, I remember as a kid, you play outside all the time. There was no internet when I was a
Yeah.
kid. We're outside running around playing football, and the sun would be midday burning yellow. You could look right at it, it would hurt your eyes, but not like now. Like you look at that burning white sun, you're going to burn your eyeballs out. You can't look at that thing.
Well,
Yeah.
check this out. I'm looking at your chat right now, and there's several people saying the sun's always yellow. It rises and sets yellow. Maybe out west, because every time I'm out west, I do see that. But here on the
Right.
East Coast, like I'm watching the sun rise over the Atlantic every morning. And when
Mhm.
it comes up in Boston, when it goes down in Boston, it's white. The
Mhm.
other
Oh,
day
wow.
it set and it was actually yellow, and everyone stopped to look at it because it's like we haven't seen this in, well, probably 18 months. 18
Like,
months. It's
Wow.
never
wow.
yellow. Never.
That's a long
Out,
time.
yep. Out west, almost every time it's yellow and huge.
Yeah, in Texas, it's where I'm from. In Texas, it's yellow on the rise and the set almost all the time. It's white
Yeah.
rarely, but when it's in midday or once it gets past about 9 o'clock, it starts turning white and almost like a burning spotlight. It's really weird.
Yeah.
Like it's almost like the volume gets turned up on it and it turns white. It's
Yeah.
very weird.
Yeah. So, because it seems like what they're saying, what when they talk
Who are
about,
they?
yeah, I don't know, when
It's them.
when yeah, them.
There they are. Okay.
They have, Harvard, and now Trump says it's vitamins, and they do try to tell us stories about this here recently, and stuff, but it appears as though the story is that we're trying to cover something, but protect the earth or whatever, protect from the sun because of global warming, because then they're going to melt the polar ice cap, that doesn't exist. That one is hilarious to me, but they're saying that it's to cover something, but if it's to cover, or that to tone down the sun's heat, but that seems to be the complete opposite effect, because if it's getting white hot and it's burning everybody so much faster and everything like that, it's completely the opposite effect for it to be shielding this stuff that they're spraying. Isn't that
Yeah.
the story that they're trying to come?
President Trump's spraying vitamins on us now.
I know, yeah, it's so nice of
They're
him.
chewable. They're delicious.
Yeah.
And in the air. That just sounds wonderful.
Watch out, it might change
And
the color of the hair.
it's
Sorry.
that's probably exactly what it is. That's what, you know what? He's sick of the jokes. We're all gonna wake up one morning, have the worst comb over ever, and our hair will be flaming orange.
Orange. He'll be the one with normal hair. We'll all have orange hair.
Yeah.
Like, oh no, what happened? Yeah, well, guys, we're coming up on an hour and a half, and I have to wrap it because I can't. I'd like to do this for hours and hours and hours, but this is all I can do. So, Tonette came in here first to give her first shot at last thoughts, and we're going to close out with my favorite music from Destiny Lab. But what do you have to close out the group, Tonette? You have any final thoughts for us?
You're fired. 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 You're fired.
Let's go.
Hello, Mr. Trump. It's an
Hi.
honor. It's an honor to meet you. I was wondering what you would say to.
Regardless of what we're seeing around us, it is the Christ in you that is the hope of glory. Know
Absolutely.
that the Spirit will lead us to all truth and understanding,
Mhm.
and God is not the author of confusion, and that is what makes me
Amen.
so adamant that these Bible changes are not of God, because God is not the author of confusion. The Bible wants had no contradictions. I truly believe that, and that can't be said anymore. So
Mm-hmm.
just know that trust God with all your heart, mind, and soul, and just love others. Love others.